Greetings, everybody. Welcome to BSG webinars. My name is Jake Keeler, VP of Marketing at BSG, coming to you from my home office in Eagan, Minnesota. This is our first episode, so we may have a few bumps along the way, so bear with us. Future episodes will be posted on our website as well as recordings of our past episodes. The page can be found by going to bsgcraftbrewing.com and clicking on the webinars tile or going directly to bsgcraftbrewing.com/webinars. We are aiming to have new webinars every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Time. We have about 6 lined up. 4 of them are posted on the site today, and you can actually register for those right now. Throughout the webinar, please ask questions through the Q&A function, which is at the center of the toolbar on your viewing screen. If we have time during the webinars, we will pass some of those questions along to the guest. If we don't have time, you can follow up with those questions to an email address that will be listed in the end graphic tile, and we'll put that on the website as well. And with that, I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Sabrina Merriman, Director of Logistics at BSG. Her talk is entitled COVID-19 Logistics Update, Navigating Today's Crisis and Planning for the Future, an in-depth update as to how BSG Logistics is operating during COVID-19. And with that, I'll hand it over to Sabrina.
Thank you, Jake. Welcome, everybody. I just want to kind of give a little background on myself and also let you know you might hear a 12-week-old puppy and a 9-year-old boy running around, so just kind of bear with me. So I've been with BSG for 5 years. I came prior from a dairy company. I've been in logistics for over 16 years, and I have a master's degree in supply chain and logistics. So I've been doing this for a really long time, and I wanted to kind of get this out to all of you today, just to kind of go through what BSG is doing in kind of these crazy times, and also what you can do to help in the future, to help your supply chains down the road. So with that, we'll start. So today's agenda, we're going to go over what we're seeing today. We're going to go over navigating through the crisis, kind of how we're going to get through it, what we're going to do to maybe be a little bit more flexible in the future. And then if we have any time, we'll go through a Q&A. So first off, what we're seeing today, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, which I think COVID-19 was a huge punch in everybody's face. And especially from my team and the logistics side, things were really crazy the first couple of weeks. And we're starting to see things streamline a little bit, but it's definitely been very trying. So first, we'll kind of cover the North American impacts. So from a truckload, freight perspective, trucking continues to perform. It's flowing freely across all of the markets. We've had occasional spot challenges. At the beginning, when everybody was really, stocking up on toilet paper and all of the essentials, we did see some, pretty tight capacity, but that's now freed itself up a bit. And then travel restrictions to some certain states and to others don't really restrict trucking. The same goes for cross-border traffic. Even though you can't go there and visit, the cross-border traffic is still flowing freely. Goods are actually now moving faster in transit than they have before. So an average shipment time is about 2% faster. This is most likely due to lower traffic levels. I saw a few statistics earlier this week that said, like LA was about 35% faster, and Atlanta, I think, was like 60 or 70% faster. So things are obviously speeding up as, all of us are not on the road, we're not commuting, which is great for our deliveries. Some of the things that we can do, maybe just to help our teams, is we consider having sanitizer available and washrooms clean and well stocked with soap and paper towels. I know that all of our warehouses have been extremely cautious and careful about how they're operating and, making sure that they are staying distancing themselves and making sure that they're, not signing the bills of lading, that they're keeping the carrier safe as well as themselves. Some of you have put health questionnaires and other preventative measures in place, which is great, I think, for your teams. Just know that it does cause some delays, and this is across the country. So we have seen excessive delays and buildup of freight at cross docks. And most trucking companies are not forcing their drivers to comply with any HIPAA violations set forth by either us or by the receivers. So just be aware if you run into any issues in the future, if you have any drivers who are refusing, just call us right away and we'll get things taken care of for you guys. So moving to less than truckload, service continues to increase and carriers are seeing a benefit from less traffic in the metro areas. However, as carriers lose employees just from being sick or being out from COVID or having, their children out, things like that, we are probably going to see things be a little less predictable. Carrier service does remain really good. Some carriers have slowed their transit in order to, as a cost-cutting measure, but from the carriers that we use, we're not seeing that. We're seeing that it's still delivering on time. In the very beginning, there was a few issues in terms of, carriers not knowing, as everybody went into shelter in place, if breweries were still open. But I think we've kind of passed some of that transition, and things are kind of just picking back up to the speed that they need to be at. We do see carriers restricting service offerings though. So, if you had guaranteed or expedited money back guarantee or, some of those services, they are saying, we're going to restrict those for right now, just due to, not being able to actually meet those deadlines and wanting to give the service levels that they have and have people have the expectations still be pretty much the same. In terms of, they really want to push that touchless pickup and delivery. I think this is really big. So they're asking that no signing of shipping documents happen, that the shipper and consignee have, the same responsibility in terms of, marking if you have damages or if something is wrong on the pallet. But we definitely want to make sure that, and I'll go through this a little bit later, that the process for doing that can be changed a little bit. In terms of international impacts, we are seeing, a little bit more from a global standpoint. China manufacturing activity expanded in March as they eased their restrictions and workers got back to work. And the reason that we really need to look at China is because China does truly affect all of the other ports across the world. So the reduced Chinese imports have actually reduced container capacity in Europe, and extreme measures implemented to slow the spread of the coronavirus could delay the recovery of container demand. So for a lot of the imported products that we have of crisp environment and whatnot, we are seeing a shortage of containers. What has been great for us is our procurement team is really proactive. So they got ahead of this right away, and we forward bought anything that we needed to have come in. And now we're kind of trying to slow down and try to see, where we need to go from here. But I think in the future, this is something that could have lasting effects really far. And, a supply chain it's got a lot of moving parts to it. And because of those moving parts, it takes a long time to kind of get back into that new normal. The availability of cargo containers in Hamburg and Rotterdam and Antwerp are at the lowest levels ever recorded. Again, as China comes back on and manufacturing starts flowing again and people start coming back, we'll definitely see these levels, we'll see this rebound, but we really need to have those Chinese exports kind of pick back up. In terms of Canada, so Canada and the United States have agreed to restrict non-essential trips across the common border, which is very common, but this does still leave it open for movement for freight trucks. So on average, there's about 30,000 trucks that roll across the Canadian-US border, carrying more than $1 billion in trade. Obviously, if the truck movements were banned, we wouldn't be able to get the critical supplies of food and medicine, and we'd have, both countries would kind of cease, idling thousands of workers, which nobody really wants to do. And market capacity across all provinces has been very fluid, just like the US. Things are still moving, things are moving at a really good pace. There's been, a few hiccups in both countries, just in terms of rest stops and, some of them being closed, and parking situations has been pretty difficult on truckers. But for the most part, states and provinces realized that pretty quickly and reopened up to what they needed to be, to a lesser capacity. And then one thing I know that is kind of like on everybody's radar right now is just the oil price wars. We're seeing, price wars that have caused a per barrel drop not seen in almost 20 years. The West Texas intermediate crude oil sank to negative $37.63 per barrel. So there's definitely been, obviously you can see it at the pump, right? We're paying 78 cents a gallon, which is crazy. But this global oil prices actually went into a downward spiral after the crude oil production alliance between OPEC and Russia failed to reach an agreement in early March. And since then, it's just been kind of this race to the bottom. And that has actually, really hurt the US oil market, but it's freed up capacity from a trucking standpoint. And we also see that on the back end from a rates perspective, as we have fuel that fluctuates down, we will see rates trend in that direction as well, which is a plus for shippers in that community. So how are we going to navigate through this crisis, and how are we going to kind of, move ahead? I think supply chain is still based, primarily on transactional reactive model. And when we have unexpected spikes or drop in demand, it really takes time for that ripple to a multi-tiered system to kind of come back into, alignment. So again, like I was saying, it could take weeks or even months to adjust back to that new normal. So how can we all together kind of work? We can build resiliency into your supply chain. So what does that look like? Supply chains need to take a really holistic approach, building in sufficient flexibility to protect against future disruption. We need to look to develop a really robust framework that encompasses a responsive and resilient risk management operations capability. We need to add technology. We need to see that transparency end to end. And we need to build towards a resilient supply chain for future discussions in years to come. So from BSG's end, we've been really setting into motion a few pretty robust programs to help keep us moving in the future. So one of the things that we've done, and we have been doing for a long time, is we've really built a really flexible carrier network. And in that carrier network, we're able to, push and pull when needed. So for example, we were having some issues with a parcel carrier. They were not delivering and doing what we needed them to do, over the last week or two. And we were able to pivot in less than, 24 hours to a new parcel carrier because we built the relationship and we've been able to kind of ebb and flow. So this allows for us to not have a disruption in your service. It allows for us to continue bringing you the products that you need, but it also, helps to build different carrier bases for us in the future. We've done the same through truckload and through LTL and through various intermodal carriers. I think for everybody's supply chain, it is really important that you build that flexibility, because you will create a more resilient supply chain when you have that. The other thing is really to facilitate social distancing on your docks. So, the carriers talk a lot about shipper of choice and, wanting to really be proactive in allowing the carriers to have, you know, a really good experience on our docks. So some of the things that we've instituted, and it would be good for all of our customers to really think about, is, you know, moving away from signing that POD. You know, we understand that signature capture is really important. It's really important for us and for our auditing teams as well. But we need to make sure we have that social distancing objectives in mind when we're thinking through some of our plans. So some of the things that we've been doing is we've seen customers take pictures. So you can take a picture of the product, you can take a picture of who is approving, you know, the freight. You can let your driver sign the BOL. Anything to still have captured the information that you need, but to allow that social distancing to happen. And obviously, we're trying to go as paperless as possible. So we know that COVID-19 can last for hours on surfaces, and paper is obviously a surface. So there's no need for us to continue to generate paper receipts and documentation and hand them to customers or drivers or employees, because we really do want to limit the amount of anything that could be spread. The other thing that we can do is you can automate the check-in and arrival process. So if we can limit the amount of times a driver has to be inside our facility or checking in or checking out, obviously not on the dock at all. We have no visitors in the warehouse. We have, you know, everything's really contained to make sure that the products stay safe. And now more than ever, you know, maintaining flexibility in logistics is essential for limiting disruption. So you need to start by looking at what you have today and determining if you get, you know, the most of what you need, because perfect is really the enemy right now of fast. So we need to be able to compromise. You know, I think everybody is being really flexible in these times, and we're really trying to work together and to band together, which I think is fantastic. So we just need to, if we don't have the right solutions, we need to get what can get us the furthest, the fastest, right? So again, like we were pivoting from one carrier to the other, they might not be the most ideal carrier, but we've vetted everybody, and we want to make sure that the deliveries are still consistent and they're still happening and they're still moving and product is still flowing. You know, flexibility and time to results should be the most important measures for procuring the most appropriate solution or services right now. So what we're doing, so right now, we're obviously kind of in crisis mode, right? Our whole objective at BSG is to, one, first and foremost, we need to protect our people, which RAR and BSG have done an amazing job at. We need to ensure continuity, right? So we need to make sure that we're still getting you guys the product and we're still, you know, supplying your supply chain so that you can supply your customers. And we're doing that by changing some of the procurement tactics, by making sure we're flexible with our carriers, and making sure that we've done everything we can on our side to get the delivery and the visibility to you for those deliveries in place. And then we're just using innovative and flexible alternative storage and transportation solutions. So we have a few new visibility tools we're putting in place where we're able to actually track the carrier and we get the tracking messages back. We have a TMS, which is a transportation management system, and visibility platform that we're implementing right now, which I think will greatly improve all of the visibility to not just our organization, but to all of our customers. And I think you'll see, you know, being able to track and trace, not just through a carrier's website, but to have predictive ETAs are really going to help and come in handy in the future. So in the near time, obviously, we're going to proactively adjust our supply chain like we have been. And we're going to build scenarios to ramp up and really prepare carefully so that, you know, in emergency situations or, you know, what we need to have, for us, it'll be building more full truckload carrier base. So if we just need to pivot and we can't get on an LTL, we can easily transition to a full truckload and still deliver on time. And then obviously we need to grow out of this crisis. So we need to put supply chain tools in place. Like I said, we're creating these control towers and visibility tools to really maintain total control over the transportation from origin to destination. And I think this is really going to help push us and push you guys into the next level of having complete control of your supply chain. And obviously we need to analyze the new normal and find out, what are the implications on the supply chain for our companies. Again, my team works really closely with our procurement and our sales departments to make sure that we fully understand what our customers are needing and wanting in that moment so that we can deliver that to you guys. So we just have to realize, volatility is the new normal. I think coming out of this, consumer demand is going to be different. How we're going to just interact with each other will be different. We understand that, there can be disruptions in supplier supply, with the increase of tariffs and labor and fuel. And, we always have this fluctuating pricing. And we understand that. It's just about us being able to control those and to be able to give you guys not only just the best rate, but the best service, because it is about delivering to you guys on time. We need to be able to source, really the best carriers. So removing kind of the pricing volatility, removing, any carriers who could possibly be going into bankruptcy. My team right now is taking a really strong look at what are the carriers' viabilities, how are they moving through the COVID, and will they be there on the out? Because if they won't be, then we do need to make that pivot. And then obviously from a logistics, we are looking at, from a purchasing side, our out of stocks, any POs that we have to cancel, any SKU changes, and really trying to embrace an e-commerce model and just realize, things are going to change, the retail landscape's going to change, and I would like everybody to know that we are changing with the times. We're trying to keep up with everything, and we really appreciate everything you guys have, even through this time. You guys have all been there. You've been very, you've allowed us to make some of the changes that we've needed to make in terms of logistics, and we really appreciate that. So some of the things you can ask, and we've been asking of our supply chain, and you guys can ask of your supply chain, is one, how does your logistics team contribute to the company's overall goals? Are you taking a look at them? Are you really vetting? Are you doing everything possible, right, to meet the objectives? Understanding how you'll stay on top of information. Putting this slide deck together, I had to change it 3 times just because the industry and the information was changing so rapidly. So, who's in charge of keeping on top of that information, and are they doing a good job? What data and visibility will be needed? So, are you looking to capture, performance metrics? Are you looking to, want that end-to-end visibility? Are you looking for, nope, I don't need any of that. I just need it, I call in and it delivers. Just understanding what you need in the future. How you can collaborate, obviously, across functions and companies. I think we really are about creating partnerships and wanting to, be integrated with solutions for our customers, and just looking to collaborate with any customer who wants to maybe have a more fluid delivery and logistics. Our vendor relationships based on problem solving and trust, we would assume and hope so, and that's definitely what we base our vendor relationships on, whether that be supplier or whether that be carrier. We really want to have that partnership and build that trust and make sure they're coming to us to solve the problems. Making sure you build in and plan for flexibility and redundancy. Know all of your options. So do you know that you can get guaranteed service? Do you know that you can get, if you decided to wait a day or two and build up your stock, do you know we can probably get you a full truckload? Do you know what the cost differences of those are? So just having that conversation on what are your different options and how can we serve you better? And then just, are your teams empowered to make rapid decisions? I think that's really so important right now, as we are trying to stay really flexible, making sure that my team and all the teams across BSG can make these decisions. They feel empowered, they're moving forward, and just doing what's best for the customer. So with that, I have 4 minutes left. Is there any questions or anything anybody would like to know?
This is great. Sabrina, we actually do have quite a few questions that came through, and thank you everybody for typing those questions in. Again, I'll sort of go in order of the way they came in, and we'll try to get to them as many as possible. And then if we didn't get to your question here, you can email that question to bsglogistics@bsgcraft.com, and that email address will be in the last slide. So the first question kind of pertains back to fuel pricing. And obviously we've seen fluctuations in the oil market. And the question is, given the historic low price of oil, will we see fuel charges go away?
I don't think that we'll ever see fuel charges go away. We've had this fluctuation happen a few years back, actually. And what we saw is it drop, but we never saw it go fully away, because we do know that they will bring those fuel prices back up. And for carriers, fuel is a driver for their income and for their bottom line. They're hurting actually pretty bad right now with the fuel being as low as it is. So I don't think that we will ever see that fully go away. And if we do, we'll see prices increase.
Gotcha. Okay, great. The next question kind of pertains, you talked a bit about, going paperless, those options for transactions. And the question was, can blockchains help these paperless transactions and transparency? And I guess maybe I'll add broad, are there other software or tech, solutions to minimize that paper trail, so to speak?
Yeah, so obviously blockchain and supply chain is really becoming a huge buzzword right now, and it's definitely one of those things that is going to cut down on paperwork. I think that the blockchain from a supply chain aspect is really going to be more on the international side to start off with, making sure that we don't have from a payment from the bank to the customs to all of that, making sure that flows a little bit freer. I think it'll be a little bit harder domestically, both in the US and Canada for blockchain, just because we have, you have these large carriers, and then you have these very, very small carriers. We're talking about one guy who still has a flip phone, right? And so
Right.
It's going to be a little bit harder to kind of get those guys on board, and that's kind of the Wild West out there. So the one thing that we are doing is we are trying to connect. There used to be what was called an EDI exchange, which it's an electronic digital exchange between two companies, but it's really cumbersome, and it's really, you have to have the exact parameters, and it costs a bit of money. And what we're doing now is we're kind of switching over to API. So an API connection is easier for smaller regional carriers to get on board and to connect with us. And I think with those connections, we are going to be able to see more paperless transactions, because we're going to be able to tender through the system. We'll be able to pull bills of lading. We'll be able to pull all of that information in and go more paperless in the future.
Awesome. And I'll go, this is the third question, and then I'll wrap it up. There's a fourth that I'll answer, but I'll let you handle this one. The question is, the New Zealand hop harvest completed recently. Do you anticipate any delays in bringing the new crop into the US?
We do not. We actually, it's been quite a feat, but we were able to secure so we need refrigerated containers to bring those in. So it's like, you have regular food grade containers, and then you have refrigerated containers, which is even like a rarer breed. But we've been able to, because, we do ship from across the world and we have very high volumes, we've been able to partner with a freight forwarder who's able to really secure that equipment. And so we already have actually New Zealand hops on the water coming now.
Oh, that's awesome news. And the last question was, it's just a comment. This is great information. How will customers be kept up to date on information as time goes on? And I can answer that. Sabrina's been great working with our marketing team to get a lot of this critical information to everybody as best as possible. So we've been updating our resource section of our website. And as we also have a COVID-19 resource section on the website where we have very specific things that are affecting, whether it's logistics, supply chain, operating hours through this and long term. So our resource section on our website is the best place to get, but again, there's also that email address. So I'll encourage you to, if you have specific questions about what BSG is doing or what BSG can do for you as a customer, reach out to us, bsglogistics@bsgcraft.com. And with that, I'd like to thank you, Sabrina, for sharing your time and your expertise on this subject. I think this is really great. Again, this presentation is recorded and we will post that to the webinars page. So if you want to go back through and look at the presentation and maybe it'll spark some more questions or thoughts, and then reach out to us again at bsglogistics@bsgcraft.com. For future episodes, go to the webinar page, sign up. Registration is free. Again, that's going to be every Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Time. We've got some great guests lined up and we're already working on a whole host of others. So from everyone at BSG, thanks for tuning in. I'm Jake Keeler and I'll see you around. Cheers.